to another episode of E&F TV's Bridging the Gap. And today I'm excited, genuinely excited to be joined by Queen or Princess of Weddings, Kelly Mortimer. Kelly, how are you?
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'll take princess. That feels younger than queen.
And I had a lady from Leonardo Hotels on the show a
Oh yeah.
couple of months ago, and she said exactly the same. She was like,
Oh,
I don't want to be a queen, that's too old. I want to be a princess.
I love it. Brilliant. Well, whichever we are, royalty, we'll take that title.
Royalty. So you've just got off the plane from Istanbul, you were telling me off camera. So you're not quite sure where you are, but you're here in front of the camera and we're going to do it.
Absolutely. It's Monday morning. My child is back at school. We're back in the office. We've had a busy day full of amazing wedding clients. And now here I am with you. So this is almost like a coffee break for me. I'm excited to just chat with you. This is nice.
Fantastic. I've been really eager actually. We've had to cancel this a couple of times for various reasons. Your Wi-Fi and I was off ill. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited to get you like on the show because I know that I've been aware of you for I think some time now, like simply because of your stunning social media and brilliant kind of like presence.
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, social media is a big part of our business, and I teach it to our clients as well. So, I'm glad it's working. That's a tick in the box.
But no, for those people that don't know, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so in a nutshell, now my business is to help wedding businesses to drive more wedding revenue. So that sometimes looks like training, coaching, mentoring, consulting. And that can be from big global hotel chains down to an entrepreneur who's a florist or a photographer and kind of everything in between. So ultimately, we help businesses to make more revenue from weddings. It's very niche, it's very specific.
So that there are so many hotels that do weddings and venues that do weddings, but not all of them do them well in my experience. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, so I'm quite direct in my opinion, so we might as well jump straight in. A lot of hotels are stuck in a little bit of a time warp. So even if they've upgraded their decor and they've refurbished their event space, the time warp is in the way that they sell and market weddings. And so great, that's where I come in to help them. But it's really quite interesting. I can see within a minute, I can jump onto their website, look at their brochure, look at their social media, and I can see instantly the problems that they will be having being stuck in this time warp. And what happens is that often you will hear the general managers saying things like, oh, wedding couples just want to get married in a barn. Barns are the only place we want to get married now. And it is not true. What's happened is that the people who own the barns are a bit more modern and forward thinking in the way they market the barn. And so
Yeah.
it's not that people have gone off hotels. Couples will still get married in hotels, and the hotels that have their marketing in a modern way, it still works. It still works. But unfortunately, a lot of the hotel groups are a little bit stuck in the past with their marketing.
Hmm. No, and coming from that M&E background myself, I think I said to you before that I certainly worked for a hotel where we did well over the years, but then that kind of waned and we just tended to do what we do basically, which was getting out of fashion really. We still did the slip cloths and the fanned napkins and the flowers and things like that. And it times change so quickly, don't they?
So fast, and weddings are changing faster and faster. So there might have been I've been in the wedding game for 24 years or something. There was a time when it changed a little bit slower, but now it's like fashion. Each season something changes, something is a little different. And so if we're using, for example, an image of a wedding just 10 years ago, that can look incredibly dated. And so a couple will judge the venue based on that image and think, oh, this is old fashioned. That's not how I want my wedding to look. And this is where hotels and venues get a little bit stuck because they don't realize that their imagery is giving this false impression of what they can actually deliver. And so, yeah, that's exactly where we come in and help.
And of course, weddings are so emotive, aren't they? Like, I suppose, like estate agents, like moving house, it's all bound up in imagery and social media content. And I suppose even like recruitment these days with the more modern companies, the way
Yeah.
they market the jobs and the way they market the feel of working there, it's dressed down. It's we have a client where you go into the office and it's all foliage and trees and it's cool and you can come in if you want, you don't have to. It again, it's very emotive, isn't it? Getting a new job, getting a new house, having your wedding.
100%. And I love that you mentioned estate agents, because I always see, on ads on social, whatever, and estate agents still today are using that phrase. We are delighted to offer this three-bedroom semi,
Bring to
right?
the market.
Oh my God, this phrase, like it's just so used for every property. And every time I see it, I'm like, has no estate agent realized that this phrase is so bland and boring and so overused? And the same is true in hotels. So whenever we do sales training for venues, we will see that 99% of them, and until they've been trained by me, will start an email with congratulations on your engagement and thank you so much for your inquiry. And it's exactly the same as the estate agents. We are delighted to bring to the market. And we haven't realized that this repetition of the same language, and honestly, we have clients in America, Australia, everybody starts an email with the same line. And it's so boring and it's lacking in emotion and lacking in excitement, just as you said. And again, this is another reason why they don't get responses and they get ghosted and people aren't moving forward with them.
And it's what it becomes like wallpaper, doesn't it? It's there, it's in the background. You don't
So much.
notice it.
Yeah.
Just going off on a tangent, which I like to do quite a lot. One of the things I picked up from you years ago is just creative use of out of office.
Oh, yeah.
So I hate boring out of offices. Some people daren't even say they're on holiday.
Yes.
They have to say annual leave, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, if you're on holiday with your family, just tell me, and also tell me where you are,
Yeah.
what you're doing. If I'm doing a guest lecture for a university, I'm spending a day with some
There
fantastic
you go.
students at whatever university, and I can't wait to have a chat to them about this and that. Or if I'm
Love
going on
it.
a holiday. I'm going on holiday and I say, oh, I'm going to spend 2 weeks on the Spanish coast or whatever, because people are people. We're not
Yeah.
all robots. Let's start like almost blurring that line between professional and like our personal lives because people want to know.
They do. Human beings are naturally nosy. And most of what I teach of strategy and sales is psychology. It's understanding human beings, why they do what they do, what helps them to take action. And so, you mentioned the out of office, and we have a free download in case anyone's listening and they're like, oh, I'd love to jazz up my out of office. Find any of my channels. We have a free download of how to create a much more engaging out of office that actually sells whilst you're not
Yeah.
there. But my background is five-star hotels, global groups. And the problem is that those chains will often say, this is what you're allowed to say on your out of office. And they don't allow that flexibility of
Mm.
personalization or letting people know where you are or what you're doing. And so they haven't moved with the times where the buyer wants that little bit of personal connection. They don't just want to know you're not here and you're not answering an email. So I agree, it's a hot topic.
Mm. You talk with so much passion about the wedding industry. Well, about everything actually. You really exude a certain type of panache. So I'm really keen to hear your career story. Where did you come from? Why are you doing what you're doing at the minute? And what next? So
Have we
yeah,
got
the
5
floor's
hours?
yours.
Have I got 5 hours for this one? When I was five,
Summarize.
yeah, no. So I never wanted to be in weddings. This was not like I wasn't that girl who, at 10 years old dreamed of a wedding or being a wedding planner. Not even close. What actually happened was just around 2021, I didn't know what career I wanted. I tried a few different things. I tried being an estate agent. I tried retail. Like I loved being with people. I loved selling, but it didn't light me up, right? And long story short, I got an opportunity to work abroad and I decided to break up with my boyfriend, in a year or something. And I thought, I don't want to get married. Everyone's getting married at, we're 21. Everybody's marrying people we went to school with. And I thought there must be more to life. There must be an adventure for me before I settle down and get married and have kids. And so this opportunity came up to work in the Dominican Republic. And at the time, I had definitely not been further than the Canary Islands. So this was quite far from home. 21 years old. And I said, yes, let's go, let's do it. And my mother was freaking out, where are you going? I'm going to the Caribbean on my own for this job. You can
Wow.
imagine absolutely freaked out. And I said, it's fine, I'll be back in 6 months. I just need to have an adventure before I settle down. And when I got there, I was working in a resort. So the job was to work in a resort and take care of guests. And when I got there, they said, you are going to also take care of the weddings, the resort weddings. And because I said, I know nothing about weddings. Like, this has not been anywhere in my history of my career. And they said, oh, you'll be fine. They're quite small. You know, they're not these big lavish weddings that I later went on and did. And so it was a massive learn by doing. Nobody taught me. They literally said, I think I landed on the Saturday and they were like, your first wedding's on Tuesday. And it was a total learn by doing. And I made a huge amount of mistakes. But I also learn from the ground up, from seeing what worked and what didn't work. And so I was lucky enough to be offered various different contracts and started growing my knowledge in this space. And for quite a few years, and I actually traveled the world for 10 years in the wedding corner, which was incredible. And I kept getting offered a different contract and a different hotel group. And I thought, great, yeah, let's go to Mexico, let's go to Cuba, let's go to Sri Lanka. And I just kept enjoying life and growing my knowledge base until we were doing, you know, big, gorgeous weddings. And then I hit 31. So I'd been away for 10 years and I thought, goodness, I should probably go home now. And of
Only
course,
on the 6 months, you said to your mum that you
yeah,
were going to be
I mean,
away.
of course, I'd been back to visit my mum and dad and, you know, and that sort of thing. But, you know, I was not at home for more than a holiday. So after 10 years, I was offered an interview, not the job. I was offered an interview at Mandarin Oriental, which, for, you know, most of your listeners will be familiar with. It's one of the most prestigious five-star hotels right on Hyde Park, opposite Harvey Nicks in London. And they wanted to interview me for the social and weddings manager role there. And I thought, wow, that's worth going home for. That's another adventure, right? Because I'm not from London, I'm from Cambridge originally. And so that was another adventure, and it was a different level at that five-star market. So I risked it all. I got on a plane, came back for the interview, and obviously got the job and stayed there then for another few years and really learned about the luxury market, worked with celebrities and royalty. During my time, we hosted Will and Kate's rehearsal dinner. The Queen hosted 120
Wow.
royals before the wedding. And, you know, I was again on that massive learning curve of, okay, this is five-star, this is luxury, this is celebrities, this is how you handle this type of event and wedding. So that was an incredible learning. I was then offered the role at Rosewood. They were opening another five-star hotel and they were doing an opening. So I thought, wow, I've never done an opening. Let's learn how to open a hotel. So I did that and that was incredible. And there I did my biggest wedding, which was £1 million budget. That was just the most epic, wonderful event. And then I went to Claridge's and ran the sales team at Claridge's. And then a little bit like, you know, the film Forrest Gump where he's running and running and running and then he just stops and everyone's like, why have you stopped? And he's like, I think I'm going home. And I really feel like that happened to me. And it had been, I don't know, what are we talking here, 16, 17 years now that I'd been doing weddings and events and, you know, dealing with the couples and the clients and answering the inquiries and doing the venue tours and, you know, the full shebang and running the sales team, but still doing it myself. And I just got to a day and I thought, I think I'm done. Oh my goodness, what the hell do I do now? Because I had loved it and it had been my life, but I felt like I'd done everything. I'd done another event for the Queen by that point, this huge wedding, you know, I was like, I think I've done it all. But yeah, I had all this knowledge in my head. And so then I got offered a role as a group wedding sales director for a portfolio of 45 hotels. And this was like perfection. I read the ad and I thought, this is written for me. Like the whole scope of it was just gorgeous. And so, yeah, long story short, I got that role. So then I moved out of being on the front line with the couples and actually then managing a team of 50 venue coordinators, traveling around the country, having to work out strategy for everything from a 5-star to a 3-star property that would work for everyone, different personalities, different general managers we had to deal with. And again, another epic learning curve of how to then step back and be part of the senior team. And also, you know, I was faced with a lot of older men who thought that they knew hospitality much more than I did. And I had to convince them that I knew what was best when it came to wedding revenue. And we did, and we increased revenue by multi-millions across the group. And it was epic. epic. And then I thought, I think I'm done here again. I've done, my work here is done, you know, like the magic wand is there, and everything's, we've hit the mark. And then literally from one day to the next, and I loved that job, by the way. I absolutely loved my team and I loved the job and I was very well paid and it was a beautiful job. And I woke up one day and I thought, I think I'm going to start a business. And
Literally, just
I'd never thought ever about running my own business, ever. It just, I love being part of a big corporation, that big global family. I'm a hotel girl at heart. I love big teams. And I said to my husband, I'm going to quit and start a business. You can imagine, he thought I'd lost the plot. He was like, but you love your job and you're really well paid, and why would you do that? And I said, I've got this idea that businesses need me, but they can't afford someone like me on staff full time. So obviously my role stretched over 45 hotels. So those hotels effectively shared my salary when you're in a big corporation. Of course, if you're one venue or you're one business, you can't afford someone like me on staff full time. It doesn't make sense. But you could afford me for a day or an hour or a week. And I just had this gut feel that it was the right thing to do. And so I quit without
why
any.
not?
Why not? Why not? Oh, and also I had just had my son. He was 6 months old, but I went back to work immediately after he was born. So he was 6 months old. I decided to quit this very safe, gorgeous corporate job that I had and start a business with no understanding of actually running my own company.
Yeah.
And within 3 days, we had our first paying client. And we have never looked back. We've literally grown in revenue every month, every year, grown the team, gone international, created an online part of the business, and it's just been a whirlwind. It's just been incredible. And it's business is, yeah, nearly 7 years old now. So that's
7 years
it in a
old.
nutshell.
But and you own that space, don't you? I don't I only think of you when I think of weddings, honestly, hand on
Oh, thank
heart.
you. I mean, there are other trainers and coaches doing, you know, a similar thing to what I do, but I think for me, it's my background that is different to anybody else that I know in the kind of wedding training space. You know, having gone through destination, 5-star, the corporate level, it gives me a unique perspective when I speak to businesses, whether they are, like I said, an independent entrepreneur, whether I'm speaking to the CEO of Marriott. I get it. I can resonate in with each of those levels, whether I'm talking to a 5-star hotel or a 3-star. I understand there are unique challenges. I've done it myself personally, so it's not something I've just read in a book. And I think that's the difference for me.
One thing I like about your story, I like many things about your story, but one thing that stuck with me is, and I'm thinking about this will resonate, I think, with students watching it that are currently at university, not really sure where they want to go. And I was the same as
Yeah,
you. I fell into hospitality, as it sounds like you did as well. But it
100%.
was your ability to, or your drive to try things. You said, I tried being a estate agent, I tried working here, I tried working there, and then I just jumped on a plane and went to the Caribbean, and I just tried something.
Yeah.
That is so important, isn't it? Just to, in the grand scheme of things, in the scope of your life, you've
Mm.
got so much time at that age, haven't you, to make mistakes, start again. And it's never a mistake, is it? I don't know if you agree, but it's basically it's all life experience at that stage of your life. I look at that for you, and I think that was crucial for you, having that attitude.
100%. And it's definitely something that's still part of who I am. And I don't know whether that's nature or nurture or whatever you'd call it, you know, but I've always had that thing where I'll just jump. I'll just give it a shot. And I've got a lot of self-belief that I will make things work out for me. So even if they don't work out, you know, let's say, you know, something fails, I will take the win from it. Okay, what did I learn? What would we not do next time? What can I take from this piece? Even if technically or on paper, you might say that thing didn't wasn't a success. So I never see things as failures or a bad decision. They're just experiences. They're just lessons to learn. It's just a roller coaster of life. And so, you know, and I'm grateful that I have that attitude. I'm not really sure where it comes from because I do see people are scared to make decisions. They're scared to jump. They're scared to try things. And I just haven't been that way. I've always just thought, let's give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? Right? Like, genuinely, what's the worst that can happen? And like you say, at 21, you know, 30, and even when I started my business in my late 30s, what's the worst that can happen? You know? realistically, the worst that could have happened was that I started a business, it was a complete disaster, it didn't make any money, and I go back and get another job with all the skills that I
Yeah.
have in my deck of cards. Okay, let's give it a shot, right?
No, absolutely. I think looking back, I was the opposite of you at 19. I was paralyzed by fear of making an incorrect decision. And it's only as I've got older that my attitude to risk has changed a little bit. I'm kind of living my life backwards now. And I take gambles and I roll the dice a little bit more than I did like when I was 19. I think it's a fantastic attitude to life. And it reminds me of something I was reading about. I think it's Amazon. It's one of the big companies anyway. It could be Google. I think it's
Yeah,
Amazon. And they actually have it's not called a failure manager, but it's something like a failure manager. And they actively look to fail more and more and more so that they have to increase their chance of getting that golden nugget, that one thing that makes them billions of pounds.
100%. So I actually heard Stephen Bartlett talk about this. So I love his stuff, and I went to an event and heard him speak just a few weeks ago, and he was talking about this. So he has got somebody in his team who looks for failure, and they proactively encourage failure so that
Yeah.
people are not too scared to take a risk and try something new. Because the reality is, whenever we look at any companies who are doing well, who are growing, they are risk takers. And this is what a
Mm.
lot of my clients, I have to get them over that mindset piece. And I don't say I'm not a mindset coach. I'm very much strategy and action. But if they're too afraid to try something different, and again, I see this with hotels. This is how we've always done it. This is what we do. And I'm like, okay, just let me prise your fingers off of that, and then let's just try this other thing over here that I even already know it works. You know, it's barely even a risk. I've proven it works at a million other venues. And yet people are so scared of change. But again, it comes down to psychology. And when people are in fight or flight, when they're working very hard, they're burnt out, they're under a lot of pressure, that our brains go into fight or flight, and we are less likely to take risks. And so
Mm.
that's just a proven thing about our brains. And so I think when we're in a good space, when we're taking care of ourselves, we're sleeping well, we're drinking lots of water, you know, those small things allow us to take more risks, allow us to do something that's a little bit more jumping off the board rather than stay here and not make any change.
Because then we're in growth mode, right?
Yes, exactly.
We're in growth
It's like
mode, yeah.
survival or growth. It's just those two different
Yeah.
pieces. And that can change from 1 minute to the next. You know, it's not like I'm
Mm.
in a period of survival. No, you could take a minute to breathe and calm your nervous system and actually get yourself into a different headspace to be able to move forward. And I think people underestimate how much control they have of themselves, right? We get stuck just doing
Yeah.
the thing over and over. And then but I can't, I don't have any time, I don't have money, I don't have this, I don't have that. It's okay for you.
Mm.
You've got this, you've got that. No, we could make a change, but we prefer to find excuses. We prefer to find reasons we can't do stuff.
Stephen Bartlett is my constant companion on my long runs and
Yeah,
when I'm cleaning the bathroom on
I
a
love
weekend
him.
as well. I love his podcast and I love his outlook as well. And that is probably where I heard the Amazon thing from as well about the
Yeah.
failure manager. So, and I think that's really important to students to have that, embrace that attitude. It's something that on my guest lectures, it's something that I always bring up. Don't be scared to fail. Um, so yeah, I'm glad we're aligned on that. What's your advice on students looking to potentially, or maybe dip the foot in the water of getting into the wedding industry or getting into the events industry? Firstly, what skills do they need to develop?
Okay, so skills, I would almost say none. And I know that's a little bit controversial, but when I was always hiring my teams in properties, I would always hire, and I still do it. I still, as in, recommend it to my clients now when they say, how on earth do I hire? I always hired on personality and taught the skill piece. So, you know, let's be honest, wedding management in hotels or event planning, it's not brain surgery, right? You do not need to study for 20 years to know how to manage a wedding. Now, yes, of course, there are some key things, and the more you do, the better you get, and the more pieces you cover. Yes, yes, yes. But the reality is, if you're just getting your foot in the door, then it's personality all the way that people like to hire for in these roles. And that personality is somebody who can connect with the buyer. So I would be looking for somebody who is, yes, of a general positive attitude. Obviously, when we're selling something like weddings, we're connecting with a couple. If we are a bit of a moaner or a whiner, like that's not going to work.
We
Because
all know them.
yeah, 100%. And this is a personality type. You can change it. Again, you could sort yourself out. But if I was that speaking to those students, I would say it's your personality that will carry you through, because what we need for the people working with our couples is positive attitude, can do, can fix, problem solver, thinking out of the box. And I know all these things sound so cliched, but let me throw a few examples at you. I remember I did one event, and somehow I can't remember the exact technicality of it, but the speakers wouldn't hook up to the music that was playing from the laptop, and like something just wouldn't happen. And we had 10 seconds before this had to go on. Like, and this is the thing with events. It's like once the train leaves the station, that event is happening, whatever it is, a conference, a wedding. You can't just say to 200 people, could everyone just hold on a second whilst we spend half an hour? Like, no, like the bride and groom are coming, or the keynote speaker is coming on stage, whatever. And so I just grabbed the microphone that was working, put it next to the laptop so that the sound went into the microphone and then came out of the speakers. And it's just these little details of like, how can I just quickly fix, right? I've got a catalog. I had a wedding where a registrar just didn't turn up and she couldn't get married that day, and we had to get a stand-in registrar, like just a million things. So you have to have that kind of attitude of, I can find a solution. So if you're the type of personality who always sees the problem, who always says, oh, well, it wasn't my fault that it rained. Trust me, it's not your fault it rains on a wedding day, but you're going to be the one who's going to have to find a way around it, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Is that umbrellas? Is it we throw up a tent? Like, is it we move everybody inside? You are going to be responsible. And so you have to have that personality that says, I will find a magical way to make this happen, because you will be the responsible person. People will look at you and say, what do we do now? And so
Yeah.
it's very much personality rather than skill for me. It's that kind of way of thinking and being. And that's how I've always hired, and how I still recommend to my clients when I talk to them about how to hire. It's always personality.
I hate blockers, I hate people that put these barriers up. This is the reason why we can't do it. This is the reason why it's not going to work. And it's like, well, tell me reasons why it is going to work and why we can do it. So we can have a conversation.
I made a post recently, and it was something my mum said to me, and she said it to me my whole life, and she I can't remember, there was something else that happened and she said it again, and it's something she's said to me my whole life, and it's that, well, it's okay because it always works out for you. That's what she said to me, and she says it not in a mean way, like just in a, it'll be fine, things always work out for you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day, and I made this post about it because it sort of sat in my head, and I said, I thought to myself, why does my mum always say that to me? But it's true, things do work out for me. And then I was thinking, well, is that luck? Is it just I'm just lucky in life and other people are not lucky? And then I realized it's because I don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
So, like you said about the people that put blocks in, if I really want to do something, I will give it my absolute best shot. Who can I speak to? Where can I find? Who can I DM? Who can I get in front of? And so it's hard for it not to work out because I put so much welly behind it, right? And then if I've
Yeah.
tried all of that and then it's absolutely not happening, then I'll go, okay, fine, it wasn't for me. And then I'll happily
Yeah.
walk away from that moment. And I think so many people in life do what you just said. Oh, well, we can't because of this. And then they say, well, I'm not lucky, things don't work out. Okay, but how much welly are you putting behind it so that it works out?
Hmm. You make your own luck to a certain extent, don't you? Your passion and ability to find ways around things that's soldered in your career in doing that in your position in weddings. It takes you forward, doesn't it, in your own business to continue to do that on behalf of your clients. I think it's brilliant. So what about these students that may be thinking, "Ah, I remember COVID, it was awful, the whole wedding industry closed down." What about those students who may be thinking it's a risk getting into the events industry? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, again, the people that survived through that thought out of the box. They found a different way. I've got a client who has a portfolio of venues here and in the US. She's now a good friend. We've worked together for so long. And her business had to find ways during COVID to continue to sell. And guess what? She did. She was
Mm.
still selling wedding dates through COVID for, the following year and the year after. And they were doing virtual tours and they were getting videographers in they were finding a way. Whereas other people, and I do get it. Look, I'm not saying that, I didn't cry through COVID occasionally. I absolutely did. Of course, it was horrendous. But the difference again is those people who sat back and said, oh, well, that's it. That's it. I can't do anything. The whole world's locked down.
Yeah.
It's like they want the excuse not to move. Whereas if I take my client/friend, she did not allow that to be an excuse. Her team were not allowed to go home and sit on furlough. Her team got paid and they sold all the way through, and her business is thriving. And so, yes, I totally understand that. And, I'm sure there will be another pandemic at some point. I mean, that's what they say. But the reality is that whether we are working for someone else or we have our own business, my business did not close down through COVID. We did not furlough anyone. And so, many of the hotels did other things. They accommodated NHS staff and there was other things that happened. And so whilst it wasn't a great time, we could say that about any generation. Well, you could say that about, my grandparents. They had to live through the Second World War. Like every generation's going to have something, and it's your attitude to how you get through it. So, I wouldn't let that stop me. If I was just coming now into it, I mean, that definitely wouldn't stop me getting back into weddings and events. No way.
It's finding a way to win, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Great phrase. Finding a way to win.
No, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it had a pastor over in America talking about COVID. And obviously you couldn't go to church, so there was a ban on going into buildings. So he just took the service outside and he did it in the car park, stood on a big truck and just preached to the whole town. Not even just his church, just a whole town, anyone that would listen. And I thought that was brilliant. It's finding a way to win. And that there are people that during COVID, and I remember just, I've said it before on episodes, but I was painting the fence, painting the kitchen, painting the whole house, drinking lots of wine like we all were, but listening to a load of podcasts. And there's certain people that I think of that put themselves out there during COVID, and you were listening to the podcasts every week that put all that work in when other people were just sitting drinking wine on furlough, and then now we're reaping the rewards for that, which I think is brilliant. And that's all down to attitude.
100%. So the same happened to my business. So when COVID hit, my business looked quite different. So the only way that I would work with businesses was in person. So when COVID hit, I was doing only in-person consulting and training, and pretty much only for big groups. So yes, the odd independent hotel, but as a general rule, because of my experience is so unique, having worked with big groups, that these were the guys I was working with. So when COVID hit, all of those guys furloughed their teams. So not only were they not having weddings, they had furloughed their team. So I had nobody to personally train, right? So at that moment, I had to take stock and look at my business and say, well, hang on a minute. And for about a year before COVID hit, I had been wanting to start up an online membership because we had so many suppliers, so planners, photographers, videographers, florists, who wanted to work with me. But the reality is they couldn't afford my daily rate that the hotels were paying. So of course, I wasn't going to say, well, okay, you can't afford it, I'll just give you a cheap rate. No, I was already fully booked in the hotels paying the higher rate. And in my mind, I was like, I know that I have all these people over here who really want to work with me, but right now I'm so busy fulfilling all of these other contracts. So when COVID hit, it gave me the free space to actually create the online product, create the online membership, offer it out to all of these businesses at a low ticket price, and it flew. So now, post-COVID, my business has two pieces that it wouldn't have had if COVID hadn't hit. But I could definitely have been one of those people who just sat at home and drank wine and thought, well, that's it. The hotels are shut. I can't train anyone, and my life's over. Right. But instead, I thought, okay, hold on a minute. This was something I've wanted to do. I haven't had time to do it. Now all these people are here saying, we want to work with you. Let's go. Let's move. And I had no clue how to do all of that tech stuff, how to create a space online that was like password protected. This was all brand new stuff to me that I had to learn really fast of how to do it. And exactly the same. I went live a lot. I showed up a lot. I did a lot of free training online, just so that people could get to know me and get to see who I was in that arena.
So you definitely you concentrated on what you could do rather than what you couldn't do.
Exactly, 100%.
I love it. I love it. Throughout this discussion, your love of commercial has shone almost as brightly as your love of the operations of weddings. Have you always been that way, or is that something that's developed throughout your career?
No, I've definitely always loved the sales. So, if I think about the things I did before weddings, retail and estate agency and those things, it was very much dealing with people, but also offering them products that would, that they loved, that they would want. And so I do really enjoy the sale. And the thing is, you say the word sales, especially in weddings, and people get really weird about it. Like as if we're not allowed to sell a wedding. Like what, people are just magically going to find us? No. It is a product that is being sold, but because it's such a personal thing, people do get weird about having a sales around weddings. But the reality is that is the thing. So no, I've always absolutely loved the sales piece. And I do remember, so in one of the properties I worked in abroad, and we had a small team at that point, and we were doing 6 weddings a week. And I could have sold 7, but I had to have a day off. So I literally had to limit how many days a week. We were selling so much that I had to say, no, we don't do weddings on this day, just so I could take a day off. And at that point, this is Facebook, I think, had just come out, so internet was still quite
Mm,
backwards, right? And I remember that couples would come much more for a tour than they will now, because now they can look at everything online. But back then,
mm,
you would have to really go and visit venues to understand what they had and that kind of thing. So we were doing a lot of tours for a lot of cold buyers, if that makes sense. And at one point, one couple came and they didn't sign the like they came just for a tour, but I didn't close them on the tour. And they left saying, yeah, we'll call you tomorrow, whatever. And my team were like, wow, what's wrong with you today that you didn't close them right here on the tour? Because it was such a given that if they came in the door, like they were
you were
gonna
gonna
they
get
were
the
not going
deposit.
they were not going anywhere else. Like we were at 100%, right? If you walk in the door, you're not leaving without this being your venue. And that I just always remember that one couple. They did, of course, come back and book, but it was the way my
Of
team were like,
course.
you're what's happened to you today? You're not closing everyone." It does make me laugh now when people say, oh, people won't book on a tour. And I'm like, these guys are so hot now. When they walk in a building now, they're so hot because they've looked at your Instagram, they've looked at your website, they've seen everything, they know everything.
Yeah.
All you have to do is connect and create emotion, and you can get them to sign. I was getting people to sign cold, like they didn't even know what they were looking at. So, that's where when people give me these excuses, I've been there, I've done it, I've walked a million miles in the same shoes. And so it's quite hard for them to come up with excuses that I can't, bat back at them.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I know I'm going to let you go because you're super busy. Although I could talk to you all day about weddings and about commercial and what you do for a living. Leave us with your 3 top tips for students, graduates wanting to get into the wedding industry.
Right.
Not
Okay.
to, not to put you on the spot or anything.
Oh, no, it's good. So I would try to get as much hands-on experience as possible. So I understand that people are studying and and they're going towards qualifications, but that hands-on experience is so vital when it comes to things like weddings and events. So even if that's just on a Saturday, even if that's just on a Thursday evening, like get into a hotel, get into a venue, get with a wedding planner, do some sort of internship or work experience or a paid weekend job, because nothing can compensate for that being in the moment and seeing how it actually all happens,
Mm,
watching people how they fix those issues. Because trust me, it doesn't matter where you're at, 5-star, 3-star, whatever, there will be issues because we're dealing with human beings, we're dealing with food and beverage, and things go wrong, timings go off, people don't do what they're supposed to do, the father of the bride's speech goes on for an hour more than it was supposed to, and things have to move and be accommodated. So that hands-on experience is huge. So that's definitely something I would do. The next thing I would do is look at your social media. Who are you following? And follow people who are, one of the people I still love to follow is an ex-GM of mine from Rosewood, Michael Bonser, and he is great on his social media. So he's one of the only GMs I know who really puts out onto social what he's doing on a day-to-day basis. And for sure, it's part of their bigger brand strategy. I'm sure he just didn't magically do it on his own. But people like that showing you a little bit of the behind the scenes, yes, however much
Yeah.
control there is a brilliant person to follow. Like, what does his day-to-day look like? Look at the celebs he's dealing with each day. Look at, his day-to-day. It's such an incredible thing. So hop on social media and don't just watch silly cat videos. Like, use social media as a way to expand what you're learning and seeing, and follow Claridge's and watch their posts and look at the kind of events they're putting on, and also understand that there are different levels in the market. So I think the third thing is, really understand that there are three sections: budget, mainstream, and luxury. And those three sections do very different jobs. And I've worked in all three of them. And they are like three different industries in terms of the people, in terms of the delivery, and of course, in terms of the budget. And so you really want to start to understand where you want to pitch yourself. And of course, everybody's like, well, obviously I want to do luxury end. That actually isn't true in my experience. I've seen lots of people who really enjoy the stack 'em high, sell 'em cheap events, right? At the budget end of the market. It's different. It's fun. It's fast. It's a quick turnaround. Here's another wedding. Here's another event. Here's another, and so maybe that's more your bag. So look at whether you feel you're more mainstream, budget, or indeed luxury, because those three things really require a different type of person. And it's a very, very different experience. The standards at the top there, thinking about my time at Mandarin and Rosewood and Claridge's, the standards that you hold just put you in a different sphere to other humans. Down to the point that now I can never say hi on an email. You will never see me write an email that says hi, because this is banned at Claridge's. You are not allowed to say an email internally or externally that starts with hi. It's not a brand standard. So I physically find it like impossible now. I have to say good morning or hello. Or it's just
No hi.
I can't do it.
Too informal.
It's just these small pieces that change you in that different level. So those are some of the things that I'd give.
Fantastic. Great. Genuinely, it's been a lovely chat, and I thank you so much. And I presume that if students have any questions after watching this video, they can hit you up on LinkedIn and ask any questions, but not say hi, Kelly, because that's
no, they can say hi. It's fine. I don't, I don't judge if others say hi. No, absolutely.
No, hey.
I'm quite busy on LinkedIn, as in I'm quite active on LinkedIn, and also on Instagram. So those two platforms I tend to be on every day. Social media is part of our marketing. So yeah, I am on those platforms. I'm present, I'm visible. So yeah, for sure. Come find me.
You're certainly in everyone's face on social media without a doubt. Maybe the algorithm is being fed, but yeah, I see you everywhere, which is brilliant. So, but thank you for your time.
Such a pleasure.
So we've got time for this week. Like and share, because it helps us attract really cool guests like Kelly Mortimer. See you next week.
Here we go!